Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Dana Chapman is a nutritional therapist with a corporate background. She loves networking for her business because it helps to build trust, and it's very important that her clients trust her when they start working with her. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Dana.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. Delighted to be here.
Now, your business is all about gut health and nutrition, but I know you haven't always been in that field. So tell me something about your corporate background and what you did in the past.
I, in the past, was a consultant at one of the big four consulting firms. So definitely on the consulting side rather than the auditing side. But I was involved in implementing what we call financial consolidation systems. I always found it difficult to describe what I did then as I actually do now.
So when did you get interested in nutrition?
As a teenager, actually. I think I was a teenager who was a bit chubby. I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to do the yo-yo dieting because I knew at such a young age that it wasn't sustainable, that if you start something and then stop it, it's just going to make the weight pile back on. So way back then, I started thinking about how I could become healthier. And the more I read about nutrition and becoming healthy and what health actually meant, the more interested I was. So it started a very long time ago, but I only managed to follow my passion more recently.
And so back in those early days when you were first interested, where were you getting your information from?
Good question. The internet wasn't rife. I actually grew up in Zimbabwe, so I didn't have access to the internet at that time. So I think it was more magazines and newspaper articles. And then when I went to university, I did university. My first university degree was South Africa. And I used to read a magazine called The Shape magazine, which I believe you get in the UK as well. But I absolutely used to love and devour that magazine every 2 weeks.
And so were you putting into practice what you were learning?
Absolutely. I did a lot of sport, and I suppose that's why I was using the Shape magazine, but I was reading up about what foods to include. And specifically back then, it was all around brain health and it was all around energy, because I wanted energy to be able to play the sports that I was playing. And I wanted that good brain health to be able to write good A-levels and then study for university as well.
Yeah. So back then you were just kind of doing that for yourself, whereas now you help other people with it. When did you go back to studying, and how was going back to studying later in life?
Good question. I think because it was a passion, it wasn't so difficult. So I started studying in 2013. I had to do A-level biology and chemistry to actually be able to get into the degree. So that's sort of when I started that. And then I got into the degree. And actually, so I was working and I was studying, and then I had children as well. And all of my NCT friends would say, I don't know how you do it. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start studying. And when my son went to bed at night, I would sit down and watch lectures. But when it's your passion, when you absolutely enjoy and thrive learning about the intricacies of the body and how it works, it wasn't difficult to sit down and do that after a long day of work or after a long day of looking after my young son.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense. So how old was your son at that point?
I started studying before he was born.
Wow.
So I actually gave birth. Luckily, he was an August baby, so it was
The
it was
holidays.
university holidays. Yeah.
Well timed.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Not for school systems now, but yes, definitely for my studies, it was well timed. But then I jumped straight back in I think it was back end of September or October. So he was a month to 2 months old when I was studying. And then I still went back to work as well when he went into nursery when he was a year old. So I was working, I had him, and I was studying still at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot. But it just shows just how passionate you are about what you do. So what was it that actually made you want to start a business around nutrition and gut health?
It was, my father's a farmer, and I had that saying at the back of my mind that if you don't want to work a day in your life, then do something that you love.
Yeah.
And it's that, but also I can't negate the fact that I'm very fortunate that my husband was able to support us as a family. There are lots of nutritional therapists who don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And because I have that luxury, I am able to then turn this into a business.
Yeah. And so tell us something about what you do. What's the day in a life of a nutritional therapist like?
Good question. I would love it to be back to back with clients and seeing clients on a one-to-one basis. But with running a business, there's a load of other things to do as well. But dotted around in my day is clients that I see on a one-to-one basis. I also run group programs. So that may be an hour a week. I'm running a group program. And then it's following up with clients. It's posting on social media. But the majority of my time is that seeing clients on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah. And so who are your clients? Are they men, women, a mixture? What kind of demographic are we talking about?
An absolute mixture, but generally the clients that I do get are people that have suffered from poor gut health for very, very, very many years. They have either been through the whole NHS system and been told that nothing is wrong, or they haven't investigated it. I think with our health, you kind of go day by day and it gets worse day by day and you just kind of put up with it. And only 10 years in, you're actually at the point where you're fed up with feeling the way that you are. So a lot of my clients are people who have suffered from poor gut health for a very long time.
Yeah. And so what kind of symptoms do they present with?
Mainly bloating, gas, switching between constipation and diarrhea, or maybe they are more on the constipation side. Some of my gut health clients have mental health conditions as well. So depression and anxiety may be a symptom of poor gut health that we don't actually realise. I've had people who have had constant burping. So burping or reflux, again, is a symptom that something isn't working in the gut as it should.
Yeah. And so how do you work with them? What do you do for them?
So I generally run an initial consultation, and before that I get them to fill out a full health history questionnaire so that I can understand what's happened throughout their life that has brought them to the point where they have started seeing these symptoms of poor gut health and how long has that been going on for. Then generally I run what's called a full functional stool analysis, which helps me understand actually what's going on in the gut. How is the gut functioning and what is the microbiome? What is the balance of beneficial bacteria to non-beneficial bacteria? And it really helps give a picture and an understanding of how the gut is functioning, because we don't often pay much attention to that, how well your gut is actually functioning. But if your gut is not functioning well, you're not breaking down your food properly, you can't absorb the nutrients from that food. So that picture of how the gut is actually functioning is very, very important. And then the microbiome analysis helps me really understand if there's non-beneficial bacteria in there that we have to deal with some specific supplements, or whether we just need to boost the beneficial bacteria, which we can deal with by using different supplements. And diet and lifestyle comes into it as well. It's not just about supplements. It's about the correct diet at the correct time. And even though you may be eating a really good diet, that may not still be beneficial for your gut at that particular point in time.
Yeah. And so what kind of difference do you find that you're making to your clients?
Some of my clients are actually really difficult clients. And the changes that you see can be minimal, but they can actually be vastly different. So I do have a client who had Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune condition, and she was one step away from having part of her bowel removed. That was literally the next step in the NHS. And she came to see me and we worked together for at least 6 months, going on a year, and she is now in remission. So an endoscopy shows that there is no active IBD in her gut at that point in time.
That's brilliant.
So we go from that extreme to other extremes of people who have suffered from major constipation, lots and lots of bloating, and it's a very, very slow process. Lots of reiteration of the same supplements and the same messages. I often talk about stress because stress has a really big impact on the gut. So minimal changes in terms of constipation and bloating for some clients. Some clients, it is a lot better. So I think what we can take from that is everyone is so unique, so individual. And it's about looking at this as a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Nutritional therapy is, you may take a month for every year that you've been unwell to start to notice a difference. So if you've been unwell for 10 years, you've got to think about at least a 10-month program to get you feeling better.
Yeah. Now you mentioned mental health already, and I know that's something that you focus on. What kind of difference can it make, changing your diet to your mental health?
Absolutely massive. The research shows it, and I see this in my clients very often as well. I've got a fair amount of ADHD clients. That's a little bit more of my focus this year. And lots of my ADHD clients have come back to me saying, I'm eating much better, which means that I'm sleeping better, and my focus during the day is so much better. I've got some clients who've started omega-3 supplements and have come back to me and said, I feel so much calmer during the day. So you can see in even making small changes to your daily habits, small changes to your supplement regime, that they can have really lasting impacts to your quality of life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So what have you learned since you started working as a nutritionist? I'm sure you must keep on learning as you go.
Absolutely. Everyone is unique. You can't underestimate the impact that stress has on the body and on the functioning of the body. And that different things work for different people. I think we all want to know that the ketogenic diet works, or that the Mediterranean diet works, or that this supplement is going to make us feel better. But everyone is so unique. What works for one person doesn't work for somebody else. And that's why nutritional therapy is such a great space, because it is that individualized approach. And I suppose what I'm also learning, and what I have learned, is it's very much a journey that you and your client go on. It's you learning from them where the boundaries are, and it's them, you pushing those boundaries for them to actually progress, because we all get very comfortable with our lives and change is difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So do you find that there are common issues that people tend to come to you with?
Yes. Stress being the underpinning one of all of them. And I think I actually did my dissertation on the link between stress, gut health and mental health, because it was when I was exiting the world of consulting and going into more of the nutrition space. But yeah, you can't underestimate that impact that stress has on the body. And the common conditions that I am seeing more of what's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, so SIBO. A lot more clients are coming to me with this these days. I think it is a lot more prevalent. And one of the reasons why people are suffering from this condition is because of stress. Yeah.
I know that public speaking is something that you enjoy doing as well. So who do you do this for, and where do you do this?
I do thoroughly enjoy public speaking. I did acting as a child as well, so it may come from those days. Last week, actually, I was speaking at Deutsche Bank, so I do corporate presentations on wellness, and it's wonderful to see that more companies are starting to look at the impact that diet and gut health has on our mental health, and also that cognitive performance. I also was speaking last week at Richmond Events. They do some forums for specific groups of people. So I spoke at their Comms and Marketing Directors Forum last week. So very fortunate to be able to do that and widen up the knowledge base of nutrition and gut health in the corporate atmosphere.
Yeah. So let's chat about the networking now. Was networking something that you did back in your corporate days?
No, it wasn't actually. And I don't know if it was because of the level that I was at, but no, I didn't actually. I think in consulting's not really an industry where you network specifically. But it is very much about relationship building when you are with a client. You have to build those relationships to build that trust.
Yeah. So tell me about your networking now. How do you network for your business?
And in a number of ways. Obviously, there are lots more online networking companies these days.
Yeah.
So I do online networking, but my absolute favourite networking is one that I do in the city of London called City Ladies Networking, and that is in person. And it's just so wonderful to start building those relationships with women that go on a monthly basis and meet up there.
And so what kind of businesses do you meet at those?
Oh my goodness, very vast and broad. Obviously, online networking is more small businesses, and law firms are quite rampant in those networking meetings as well. Accountants, but the City Ladies networking can range from coaches. There's a lot of coaches actually, to people in business, people in banking, people in the fashion industry, people in the marketing and online marketing space, and very, very few nutrition professionals. So it's nice to be the one or two people in the room.
Yeah, that's very good for you.
Yes.
So what have you got from the networking? What's come out of it?
I think just that knowledge and building that trust. I think working with a nutritional therapist, all of my clients have come from a space of trust, and it's a space of over 2 or 3 years, the trust has built up in them, and they are ready to take the step in working on a one-to-one basis with somebody like myself. So definitely building that trust, building that knowledge that actually you can take control of your own health, that you do need to be thinking about and looking at your mental health, and thinking about and looking at your gut health as a way to support your mental health. So very much in the networking space, I am known as the gut lady. And I think that's a lot of my clients have come through networking, either from the people in the networking or people that they are related to or are in close relationships with.
Yeah. So how many people do you tend to work with at any one time?
I have at the moment about 15 people that I'm working with at the moment, but I do have capacity for more. So I would love to broaden that out, especially through the group program space as well. It's a much cheaper price point for people to enter into. And it's a lovely space as well, because you're then going through a program with other people who are struggling with the same things. And it really helps build that community and camaraderie.
Yeah. And so how does that work? Is that in person, or do you do those online?
I only work online at the moment. I have been burnt with in-person clinics before in the past. Online actually works really well. It means that I can see people throughout the country and throughout the world actually. And my consultations are generally an hour. The first one's an hour and a half. So if you're needing to add on travel time to that, it just starts to eat away at your day, especially if you are a corporate who's got to get back to the office as well.
Yeah. So just coming back to the networking again now, is it something that you would recommend other small businesses to do, and why would you recommend it?
Definitely. People buy from people, and the only way that you can get to know other people and for other people to get to know you is networking. It is definitely the first step in. The relationship building comes after that and outside of that 1 or 1.5 hour or 2 hour networking session that you're in. But it's just such a wonderful way to open up your business. And the other thing is, as a small business owner, is it can get very isolating. And so networking really is a nice space to be out there with other people who may be having the same struggles as you are. And it's just, again, that camaraderie, that more, that personal touch that we often lack these days with the very much online world that we live in.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It is all about building that trust, especially with a business like yours, where people have got to be ready to open up to you, haven't they?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think would happen if you stopped networking?
I think I would definitely have to rely on referrals within my business rather than me speaking to anyone who may be new. I think it would limit my business, because only relying on referrals means that you're relying on the people who are working with you and their circle of friends. Whereas networking just broadens it out so much more. So there's just so much more scope for growth through networking.
Yeah, definitely. So one final question, Dana. If people are interested in finding out more about you or working with you, what is the best place for them to find you?
Thank you so much, Liz. Definitely on LinkedIn. I am fairly active on LinkedIn, so just Dana Chapman on LinkedIn, but definitely through my website as well. I've got a contact me button that comes directly into my inbox. I think I do actually have a link on there to book into my diary as well. So my website will be in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yes, it will. Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you so much, Liz. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.